Welcome to the webinar, The Safety Share, a webinar series brought to you by CIM Magazine and the CIM Health and Safety Society. I am your organizer, Michelle Beacom, Managing Editor of CIM Magazine. Today's presentation is Connected Safety and is sponsored by IM Gold. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. To ensure you have optimal audio, if you joined by computer, make sure you've selected the computer button. If you joined by phone, make sure you've selected the phone button. And if you have any questions during the webinar, type them into the GoToWebinar control panel question box underneath the question mark. And whoops, well, I'm going to introduce Jennifer, but I'm also going to tell you that we'll have some poll questions before or during the webinar. Now, I'm introducing our host today, Jennifer Pakula. Jennifer is a senior engineer with Hudbay Minerals at their Lalor mine in Snow Lake. She oversees mine scheduling and is currently focused on rolling out tablets to the frontline workforce as part of the mine's short interval control strategy. Jennifer is also an executive member of CIM's Health and Safety Society. Thank you for hosting this, Jennifer.
Thank you, Michelle. And with that, I'd like to introduce our panel today, starting with Andrea. If we can go to the next slide. So Andrea is a product owner at Suncor, and she leverages her extensive frontline experience and creative mindset to drive technology initiatives. With a decade of field experience and an expertise, she has fervent dedication to empowering workers. Andrea plays a pivotal role by delivering tools that enhance safety and efficiency. Thank you for joining us, Andrea.
Thanks.
And we'll go next to Brad Hofford. So Brad began his career as an engineering and training at Inco. That's something we have in common, Brad. I was an engineer in training there as well. And then he moved into mine contracting with Technica Mining. And with his 17 years at Technica, he's gained extensive experience as a project superintendent and manager, leading underground projects in construction, development, vertical raising, and production mining. Always maintaining a line management ownership approach to health and safety, Brad ensures projects were executed with the highest safety standards. In his current role, he oversees the human resources and health and safety environment and training departments. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
And Hamza. Hamza is a senior mining engineer with Redpath with 8 years of experience in the mining industry. He's worked at multiple mines such as Jack Pine, Red Lake, Voisey's Bay, Coppercliff South Mine, and Musselwhite. Hamza specializes in high-speed ramp development, underground construction, project management, and underground drilling and blasting. Currently, he is spearheading initiatives at Redpath to integrate short interval controls, enhancing data accuracy and consistency to better measure true performance. Thank you, Hamza.
Thanks, Jennifer.
And with that, I think we'll start our discussion with you, Hamza. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about what kind of positive impacts can result from implementing an underground app.
Yep, thanks, Jennifer. So, underground operations is generally viewed as a black box. At the beginning of the shift, you have a rough idea of how things look, and then near the end of the shift, after talking to supervisors, crews, reading reports, you still have a rough idea of how things look if you didn't go underground yourself that day. So, by introducing underground apps, it transforms this black box into a more transparent system. So this doesn't completely eliminate the need for you to still go underground and have those same conversations. But what it does do is offers live data and real visibility throughout the shift, not just beginning and end what we're used to. So this improves your team's ability to plan for future shifts. It reduces delays by being able to address them earlier. It keeps the team and supervisors more informed throughout the shift. And what I've personally seen by having implemented underground apps at multiple sites myself is an overall improvement of operational productivity.
Excellent, thank you. Brad, perhaps you have something to add around that from a safety perspective, I know Technica's been heavily involved with implementing SOFI at your operations.
Yeah, I can kind of second Hamza's experience in that we've approached it from a more health and safety perspective, but it's actually filtered into other areas. Our frontline workers fill out their frontline risk assessments, but they take pictures of before and after the workplace, as well as with pre-ops, as far as condition of equipment. And I find that it's made the workplace very visible to multiple layers of the organization. And again, it doesn't. I second as well. It doesn't replace the in-field contact with the employees and going down and seeing your work yourself, but it does create some transparency. And actually, I think it's filtered into a little more pride from our workers. And we've seen quality of work go up. People are proud to display the work they've completed at the end of the shift through their reporting. So I do see a positive impact as well.
Excellent. Now, I'm sure everybody's wondering, does the same apply on surface? Andrea, can you give us some hints on that?
Of course. And yes, I think everyone, like in your own operation, the operation could be a real black box. Like it's hard to know what's happening in real time. And don't underestimate the power of connecting your workforce, supervision, frontline workers. Just the ability to take a photo, and a photo says 1,000 words, was life-changing for our workforce. I just to level set at Suncor in our mining operations, we have like well over 3,000 devices for our main workers. And it is real-time communication using our applications, taking photos. And then also, I know that others on the call have mentioned this before, even from a safety standpoint, collaborating. I have workers before they make a judgment call or they do like something in the field, they will have conversations over Teams and other collaborative apps that do not take place over the radio, because the radio is meant for something quite different. We were pleasantly surprised with how many events we were able to get ahead of because workers had more courage and community with real-time collaboration.
Thank you. And I know we are finding that here as well at Hud Bay as we're partway through implementing tablets with our underground crews, and we're already getting pictures. So there's nothing like a picture of that broken hose that then the mechanic can actually look at. And maybe some people in our audience have some questions as a follow-up for Hamza on what kind of positive applications they've seen or have some questions about something they might be thinking of at their site. And if so, you can write your question into the chat and we will get there. For now, though, let's change to Brad, and I'll ask you a question more on the safety front. So I know over the last 4 or 5 years, Technica has been digitally transforming their operation with its rollout and adoption of SOFI, which is a safe performance platform. Can you give us some insight on how that digital platform impacted your organization's connection to your safety systems? And, what was surprising about that? And can you share any insights for the rest of us, especially us here at Hud Bay, as we implement SOFI as well?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Jennifer. I think the biggest piece it did from a connection, like connecting our workforce, actually started at the line management and with the management team. SOFI and our safe performance platform became kind of a rallying point or focus point for us. And we had to get serious about what our safety systems were, how we were going to apply them and apply them through a digital platform. So it actually grew the maturity of our line management and our management team with our safety systems. And we became very, conscious of our systems and why they were in place. So our management team got stronger because of it. And then the second thing it did is it connects multiple layers of the organization. And I'm still an advocate. You got to get in the workplace. You got to have interactions with your workers, supervisors, superintendents. But it still connects us. Everything's very very visible between multiple layers of the organization: worker, supervisor, superintendent, manager, executives. We do positive recognitions, all our risk assessments, pre-ops, frontline risk assessments, investigations, hazard reporting on our system, and it's just easy and accessible to everyone in the organization. And I find people are in there all the time, and it's actually grown not only our capability with our safety systems, but the quality of our safety activities has improved because of the visibility. So we're talking about now not just hitting our targets and doing our work, we're talking about how good the quality is and whether we're having the right conversations. So it's really connected that multiple layers of the organization. On the second question around what surprised me, during the initial rollout, when we went out to all workers with our tablets and our safety system, I was a project manager at the time with the organization on a site of about 140 or 150 people. It wasn't a small site. I was actually quite nervous about what it was going to reveal within our organization and whether our management team was going to be able to manage the inflow of, issues, hazards, communication from the workforce, and how mature the workforce was going to be with the system. And actually, I was blown away of how comfortable they were with the system, getting their lineups digitally, communicating, using the tool to the benefit of themselves and the operation. We didn't have any, some of the nonsense that I was kind of worried about. And it actually enabled us to react better to our employees and grew engagement. I believe it grew engagement with the workforce as opposed to, the separation of it. So that was the first surprise. Second surprise, it's really grown our maturity with our risk management and our safety systems. It started to bleed, and it started to filter our risk management, maturity has started to show up outside of the safety world and just outside of just health and safety. It's shown up in how we deal with HR issues, how we deal with quality control and quality management, right down to production, and some of the things that are coming through and what we try to manage even from a maintenance perspective. Investigations coming in because we had a tire blow the other day, and I said, well, tires blow all the time. And the maintenance manager said, yeah, but we suspect that the tire pressure sensor was messed up and it shouldn't have. So I want to know more about it. And I was like, that's a valuable incident to put in and go take a look at. So it's really matured our overall our company from a risk management standpoint. And finally, my final piece for advice for companies like Hudbay that are going down that journey is the tool or Sophie or whatever system you're rolling out. It's important, and they all have their benefits. Some of them work better than others, but at the end of the day, I think the success of the system really comes down to your leadership and the culture that you create. So we've had multiple generations of growing our safety culture within Technica, and I found we had a strong culture. So when we implemented the tool, it amplified that culture as opposed to retract from it. And the success of the tool and the system is completely dependent on the leadership and the culture that's within the organization. So my advice is focus on the culture and focus on the leadership and don't stop growing that. The tool, the magic bullet we're all looking for, it doesn't exist. I think it's not in the system or the tool, it's in the leadership. So that's my only advice.
Yes, that's great advice. Thank you, Brad. Maybe Andrea, you would chime in a little on that. Have you seen the same kind of cultural shift in the surface operation?
Yeah, like you can see me just like nodding fervently because Brad took the words right out of my mouth. I initially, when we started rolling out, we have one device per worker. So every worker has their own device. Not everybody will have that same kind of requirement for the end users, but it works really well for us. And initially, when we rolled out, I found myself, and I still find myself, coaching our management a lot more than our frontline unionized workforce. And that's because like the frontline workers, like they use phones and devices in part of their regular life. They're hungry for change and for efficiencies and feeling like they're able to do more at work. But it's really our leaders that were worried about there being like more slip, trips, and falls because people would be walking and texting at the same time. And like knock on wood, across our entire operation at Suncor, we are approaching like 13,000 of these devices in the fields, and we haven't had anything like that. And that's just, it's been a massive campaign of coaching our leaders to treat our workforce with a certain level of trust and professionalism. And they've risen to that challenge because they have the privilege of these connected devices. So that's been really fantastic. And then moreover, because we've taken this approach of trust, our workers are starting to innovate and give us feedback to make it better and more effective for them. And an example I have is our operators who work in the mine. They found an out-of-the-box free app for lightning strike management. And if anyone's a golfer or a fisher, I'm sure you have this, like these lightning strike apps that you can just find in the Google Play or the App Store. The crews downloaded it, and now they're more savvy at managing electrical storms on their own persons than waiting traditionally. What we would do is an all call on our radio to stand down work for our surface mining operations. So it's really cool if you have trust, like Brad said, and you cultivate that more mature leadership culture. It will pay in dividends.
Thank you, Andrea. And maybe Hamza, do you want to comment on the maturity level that you've seen in your workforce as you progressed with using the online applications?
Yeah, I'm pretty much completely in line with Brad, where I too was pretty nervous on rolling out these tablets here at Musselwhite and the Sono phones at Boise's Bay. A lot of our workforce, they're still using flip phones. That's what they're used to. That's what they're comfortable with. So I was really nervous on how they would adapt and really be able to use these devices. And I was really surprised too on how open and how welcoming they were to adapting to this change, accepting this change. And just to reiterate what Brad was saying, it all starts from the top down. If management was on board, they got their supervisors on board, supervisors got the crews on board. So it all trickles down from top down. And yeah, it's surprising how willing workers are to accepting this new technological world, and how it's a lot easier to implement than I thought it would be.
Thanks, Hamza. Now, I know some of you are paying attention because I do see the questions coming in, but I'm going to go first to our first attendee poll. And if Michelle can put that up on the screen, thank you. So what do you see as the main risk of providing employees devices in the workplace? Pushback from being tracked, damage to the devices, stopping work if they do not have a device, or using the device for non-work related activities. So I'll give everyone a couple seconds to get their votes in there. And it looks like we have a clear winner on the main risk is in pushback from being tracked. And we did see a little bit of that here at Hud Bay, but it was more of a joking nature than perhaps a serious concern from the employees we just rolled out with. So hopefully that will continue here. All right, I think I will move to Andrea. And, well, no, there's the results. So 49% pushback on being tracked. And then damage. Okay, so interesting. So Andrea, what do you see, or how do you articulate the value of a project? What surprised you about this type of using an electronic app in work?
Great question. And I'm asked this all the time. How do you articulate value? And again, I find myself, the majority of my work is teaching our leaders to think a little bit more differently. We're used to building refineries. We have a lot of known knowns, and we know exactly how many barrels we're going to get at the end of our refinery build. That's not the same with technology. And I'm teaching our folks to think more in the lines of, this is not a project per se. There may be initial investment, but it is a tool. It's an enablement tool for our workers. So how do we articulate value if this is a tool? It's kind of like if you use a tool like in your daily life. I mean, I'm a fixed plant girl. If I have a pipe fitter pick up an impact gun, what's the value of that tool? Like, it's a very different conversation. And so what we did is we went out to our mine, and every manager in the mine, we said, we're giving you this tool. We're developing it with your frontline workers. It's going to be a tool that's useful. Tell me how you're going to run your operation differently, because you have this enablement tool now and this suite of applications. And it was very interesting hearing the response coming back that now we're able to do maintenance planning much, much more effectively because we have photos attached to our SAP notifications due to the tool. Another manager, they're coming back saying, we've been able to reduce our workforce by 20%. In direct correlation to the fact that we have these enablement tools. So that's the value. And when you look at the impact from an enablement standpoint, we're looking at a 10 to 20 fold return on investment. So that's how we've articulated our business case, is not by relying on consultants or like the center to say what the impact will be. It's going to the business and saying, how are you going to work differently? Because this is disruptive. This is like it sounds cheesy, but this is an industrial revolution. We've never worked quite like this ever before. How are you going to do that differently? And just to pile on all of this, I've had the privilege of talking to people around the world about their apps and their mobility and their connected worker programs. And I cannot stress enough how Canada and Alberta, where I am from, and if you're in Ontario or Manitoba, we know our business the best in the world, and we have like just amazing skilled workers. The solutions will come from us, and we can do it relatively cheaply as long as we listen to our workers and build the tools with our workers. Like, let's stop listening to Silicon Valley and to third parties that don't know our business, because we know our business best.
That's a good point, Andrea. Hamza, have you seen that pushback? I know you do work at different sites. Do you get that pushback around this site knowing its business best?
So I could kind of talk from a contractor's point of view. By implementing these apps, it's essentially the new norm, really. So from our point of view, from a contractor's point of view, you always want to be bidding on more jobs, getting more work. And these big companies such as Newmont, Kinross, Vale, Goldcorp, they kind of look for, hey, what are you doing what are you doing for, say, short interval control? Are you using Deswick Ops? Are you using a DevOMS system? So that's the way from our standpoint is, okay, it's essentially this technological movement is essentially going to be the new norm. And it's going to be included on everything moving forward.
Excellent. And do you see the same kind of pushback with a safety system, Brad?
Pushback from workers, no. But to kind of comment on the initial question for Andrea, if I could, around like articulating value of a project, the project of implementing SOFI. I do have something, because we didn't come from an operation short interval control. We started with the safety piece, and it started to filter into other parts of our organization. So the initial like proposal, there's the easy stuff that you can put value on. From the devices almost pay for themselves with the reduction in paper and the printing and everything else, from pre-op books to what we do, and how much paperwork for a project we would produce to have it in the field or with our workers, from 5-point cards. It almost pays itself off alone in that. And then there's the operational efficiencies, and we don't, in all honesty, we don't focus on that. We're not tracking it to say we're getting X number of dollars as return to maybe the same level that a Suncor is at this point. And then it may sound, from the safety side though, if we have better safety performance, keeping an injury at a first aid or not having any injury at all, or it doesn't go to a medical aid or a restricted work because we're better at managing safety and we're having better quality conversations. It's hard to put a dollar value on that activity. I mean, it sounds cheesy, but the value proposition originally for Sophie was if it saves one life, then it pays. Everything that we're doing with it is worth doing. So we came from it from that standpoint, and we don't run the hard numbers on it, but we have started to do trending as far as how it's impacting our overall safety performance. A reduction. We have a significant reduction in our incidents with the usage of Sophie going up. We're able to actually start to see some trends between the use of the system as well as our safety performance. And our overall severity has come down from where we do have an injury. So that in itself is saving us significant money and adding value to the organization. So.
Yes, that's excellent news, Brad, and something we can all take back to our individual companies on. It may be hard to quantify the value of this project, but just the decrease in injuries itself, there's a value there that goes beyond actual dollars and cents, and also does impact the bottom line with workers' compensation rates and so forth. Maybe before we go to the next poll question, I'm going to look at a couple questions in the chat. There were two of them in particular, like what would you do to set up a project from scratch, and what sort of infrastructure is required for the communications? So maybe, Hamza, I know you've set up a couple of different spots. Do you have any comments on, what advice for someone that's just starting?
So first thing is sort of what we were talking about earlier. First, you need buy-in. You need buy-in from the management team. You need them to be on board. You need them to make sure their team is on board. That's going to be really where the biggest challenge is getting the crews to buy in. So if upper managers bought in, then the crews will buy in. And then from an infrastructure standpoint, you need to make a decision on what devices are you going to use. Are you going to use tablets? Are you going to use mini iPads? Are you going to use phones? So from that standpoint, and what kind of information you're looking for. Say for underground, are you just looking for your critical path? Are you just looking for your jumbo scoops, your service crew? Are you also looking for your trucking? Are you looking for your behind the face services? So it depends on how big you want to make it. You can make it as big as you want. You can be, okay, just one person using one of the devices to track the face, like your shifter has it. So from a infrastructure standpoint, you can make it as big or as small as you want. And from a communication standpoint, even if you don't have connectivity underground, if you don't have Wi-Fi or LTE, a lot of the systems have it that once you do get connectivity, then it can sync once you're on surface or at a spot where you can have Wi-Fi.
Okay, we have seen some issues ourselves with syncing, although we are looking at perhaps LTE in the future as opposed to Wi-Fi points. Brad, you've been involved with a lot of underground applications. Any advice on what type of infrastructure to use?
Yeah, as a contractor, we move around lots, right? And often, sometimes we have office spaces that are provided by the client. Sometimes we're bringing in our own trailers, depending on the contract. Sometimes we provide our own Wi-Fi and internet service and the whole 9 yards. It has put a strain and made it really important how we're setting up our sites and how good our connectivity is. And we have had some syncing issues from time to time. From an underground standpoint, it hasn't been an issue. Sophie works offline, and our system was designed to be used in an underground mine. Not every mine has, Wi-Fi like some of the more modern mines that have been built in the last 10, 15 years, or LTE systems. So our system will work offline. But in and around the office space, when 20 tablets fire up and they're trying to download lineups or sync, it can put some strain on. So you have to kind of go look at that. I'm not going to pretend to be the IT guy and tell you what the solution is because I don't know, but get your IT department involved and get an understanding of what kind of bandwidth and activity you're actually going to see. And even down to, now you have a new device, it needs to be charged. Where are you doing that? Are workers taking it home? We've had to adapt in our trailer setups or our office setups where we have charging stations for our workers, and they just leave them. They're not interrupted. We don't get anything stolen. We don't have any issues along that line. But there are, minor little things that pop up that you're like, oh, I never thought about this, right? So we got the lamp rack, and then you have your tablet rack or your phone rack where everything gets charged, right? So little infrastructure things, sitting down and doing a risk assessment is always a good start to start flushing those items out too.
Yes, good advice. Maybe we will go to our second poll question now. So what do you see as the main benefit to providing employees devices in the workplace? The ability to enter data and reduce paperwork and errors, the ability to provide documentation as needed, ability to monitor the status of the employee, or ability for quicker communications. Oh, this one looks like it's a little bit of a race. We'll give you another couple seconds to get your votes in. I don't know if we're going to be able to tell between the first and the last option. But it looks like it's kind of a tie between ability to enter data and reduce paperwork and errors and the ability to communicate faster. So there was one question that came in around time in the field. And that's one of the things we thought would actually increase with the tablet in the frontline supervisor's hands. Some of that paperwork that used to have to be done at a desk somewhere could now be done in the field. And maybe, Brad, have you seen that with some of the safety work that's being completed? Is the supervisor actually in the field more?
Yeah, and I think you can also see if they're in the field because you can go look at their paperwork, and you can get an idea of where it was completed. So they have the ability to complete their shift reports throughout the shift ongoing, and they do it right on their tablet. So by the time they come to surface, it's already done. So there's less need to be getting on surface at 20 minutes early, being able to put their shift report in and prepping for night shift. And not only that, but if they're doing a job demonstration, a job observation, workplace inspection, it's done on the tablet in the field. You can't do a workplace inspection or observation unless you're there watching the work and in the workplace. And from a more legislative and compliance standpoint, you can actually go see. It's not sitting in a box somewhere. All the job observations and work being completed by our frontline supervisors and our superintendents and our workers. It's not in a box somewhere stored for 3 months and then getting thrown out. It's very visible. I can go in, I can check what's going on. I can check on, my direct reports, our health safety training advisors in the field. I can check on on a monthly basis. I can look at all the safety work done within my department, and kind of have an idea of the work. And it actually has become a highlight. You get to highlight the good work that our people are doing because they're out there doing some fantastic, having fantastic interactions with our workers and our people. And it's blown me away by the quality of the work being done by that would have been otherwise hidden. Like, yeah, you see some of it, or if you get in the field and you observe a direct report with your superintendent or one of your health safety training advisors, you get to visibly see it. But now I get to see all of it throughout the month. And yeah, it doesn't replace the field. Get in the workplace, go tour with your direct reports, go see your people. But it gives you a really good sense of what's going on for sure.
Thanks, Brad. Andrea, Surface is a little bit of a different environment, and some of your supervisors may actually be able to see their people from quite a distance away. Have you found those supervisors spending more time in the field as well, or less time?
Way more time. And like, yeah, like our minds, like we're talking like kilometers, right? like we're seeing like upwards of like 30% plus more time in the field because they don't need to leave their truck. They can stay in the field. They can do, like Brad said, shift logs in the field and talk real time where people need that information. And it's been so widely adopted that like even up to our senior executive levels, they've all asked for these special connected devices because there is so much more value in being able to be in the field and able to take a Teams call if you have to, and then continue on with your work. So we've collapsed a lot of that travel time that used to happen with supervision to the permit center or the office because they have that real time at their fingertips. And even to pile on in terms of a note of connectivity, we're lucky because we're above ground, but because we rely on these devices so heavily as a safety tool, like real-time video feeds, connected gas detection, working alone, we've made the like concerted investment in technology like private LTE. And I know that that's becoming more of a conversation for underground as well. And it's nice to see that this technology is becoming cheaper and more available. So we are heavily connected and heavily reliant on these tools.
Thank you. And Hamza, I'm wondering with a short interval control perspective, if you're seeing the same thing with more time in the field, because it almost seems that if you've got your short interval control set up, then the supervisor could just kind of look at the screen and make sure the work was going. Is he still or she still getting into the field quite often, or more so or less so?
Yeah, so at some of the sites there is connectivity, so you can see it live while the shift's going on. While other sites, there isn't connectivity, so the supervisor's still down there. But probably the biggest thing is probably end of shift. Instead of a supervisor rummaging through 20 different sheets and plots and seeing exactly how many holes someone drilled or how many pieces of pipe someone hung, everything is now in one central area. And a lot of times these systems, they auto generate the reports for them, so it's a lot less data entry for our supervisors, which gives them more time to be underground themselves.
That's good to hear. Now, there's another question here around uh, have we been able to leverage being connected as a time saver? And I know, Andrea, you mentioned savings in travel time. Have you seen any other savings
Oh,
around time?
it's a massive time saver. And I kind of hearken to like what works for your daily life can work for industry. Like I know if I was going to get groceries and I forgot my phone, I'd probably go back home to get my phone because everything's on it and it collapses so much administration. So when we go back to all of our sites, and again, this is fixed plant and or mine, across our 11 operating sites, at the frontline level, at management level, we are looking at easily $150 million of return on some kind of collapsed administration due to time savings year on year. And that's when we lean on our operators management to say, how are you working differently now? Because you have so many efficiencies. Are you hiring less people? Are you able to do more work and less overtime? We've seen, like, in the course of a day, it depends on the end user, but we've seen anywhere from saving in administration and like travel time and scanning papers and printing papers and looking for documents and all of this administration easily from 30 minutes to 2 to 3 hours a day for our workers.
Oh, that is incredible. Uh, Hamza, have you seen similar time savings underground?
I wouldn't say $150 million, not at our sites, but yeah, you definitely have seen a lot of time savings from not having to, again, going through massive amounts of paperwork or doing 4 different reports. Having these auto-generated reports has definitely helped out a lot.
Okay, and from a safety perspective, Brad, and first, can you tell everyone exactly what Sophie is? We had that question in there as well, but have you been able to use Sophie as a time saver? and you're muted there right now.
Oh, I was warned about that earlier. Sorry. So Sophie is a application that has a mobile application and a desktop application. Um, our supervisor, we do all our risk assessments on the platform, and it's done digitally in a database, and we can go in and review. All our workers get their written lineup via Sophie. Supervisors, puts the lineup together, lets the worker know what risk assessment they're working for, populates the lineup with the risk assessment and the steps, the controls that are needed to do the work safely, sends it to the worker. From a worker standpoint, they do their pre-operational checks on all their equipment, complete with pictures, their frontline risk assessments on there. We do all our safety activity work for our frontline supervisors, doing job observations, demonstrations, workplace inspections. Our managers do all their visible felt leadership audits on the platform and record their interactions in the field. We do our construction reporting. We actually have some HR activities on there, from employee reviews to positive recognitions for our employees. So everything that we would have done on paper in the past is done digitally, and we get all the data that then we get to kind of start to harvest. And we have a business analyst that works with us to dashboard some and look for trends, both from an HR perspective, health and safety, and maintenance. So that's kind of the roundabout what Sophie is. As far as time savings, I mean, from an administrative standpoint on site, we used to have to file all our 5-point cards, all our pre-ops, record any issues. Our coordinators on site would then take that, or our supervisors on site, any pre-op, if it came up and it wasn't soaking wet or damaged and was legible, take all the issues from the pre-op, communicate it to maintenance so that they can get an action. Maintenance just comes in now and runs an equipment report at the end of the shift, and it compiles a report, and they get a list of all the issues from the gear from the night before or the shift before. And then, that sets out the plan for the maintenance team of what they need to tackle from an urgent perspective, and then they tackle their planned work after. So the quickness in communications just saves time in itself. It's direct. It's not, interrupted by somebody making a mistake or a piece of paperwork lost on the way to the trailer or at the end of shift. So it really has streamlined things for us for sure.
So is it really we're just getting a lot more better information and not really saving time per se, but getting more value for our time?
Yeah, and I think it gives the worker at the face a voice directly to, the supervisor and even the superintendent. We have superintendents that, as a contractor, will cover a couple different sites from a maintenance perspective. I know he comes in and runs a report, and he might know what's wrong with the gear, right from the worker at the end of the shift, without having to call the site and ask if there's any issues. He gets the report. He knows exactly what's going on with the equipment, and he can even prompt certain, hey, I saw this issue show up. Did you know about this? And get an action ahead of time proactively for the site, and dispatch a mechanic out to a site and solve an issue before they even know it's a problem.
Excellent. I think for the next question I'd like to address from the chat to you first, Brad, around the use of AI. I know it's a hot topic these days. And with a large database like that, have you actually started to use it yet, or do you see an application there that might be worth looking into?
Yeah, as far as AI thus far, we haven't gone down that road. We're scratching the surface with that. We do a lot of we've started to manipulate the database, and we've started to set up dashboarding to track certain activities. So we have our fatality injury prevention plan, and there's certain actions within that. I have a live dashboard on a daily basis of how we're performing against our fatality injury prevention plan, and not just for a site or a group, but the whole organization. I can tell you if we're on target for hitting all our safety activities. I can tell you if We've had the right number of joint health and safety inspections. I can tell you if management's been involved in those joint health and safety inspections. I can tell you how many incidents we have open over 30 days and whether we're on target. So we've done a lot of dashboarding. We haven't quite touched the AI piece. We have a few initiatives this year to kind of start to look at that, both from a business and a health and safety perspective, but we haven't quite dove in. Once you get into artificial intelligence, there's so much out there. It's sometimes a little tough to narrow in what you want to tackle. So we're getting there, but we're not there yet.
Fair enough. Andrea, I think I remember you saying your workers had a lightning strike app. That strikes me as there might be some AI in behind that. Have you had other uses for it?
Yeah. So like, I love the question about AI because like this is such a journey and it takes time. Like if there's a call to action on this call for all of the operators, start somewhere because I see on many board roadmaps that we're going to use AI in the next 3 years. Like it's not going to happen. Like this is a journey. Like we need to start with connectivity, then what devices the workers are going to use. We need to like tease out the apps so that the workers want to use them when we have engagement. And then you're looking at data strategy, and that sounds like where Brad is, and it's kind of where we are at Suncor is we're making all our data look the same, we're cleaning it up, housing it in one spot, and then you can start overlaying AI. Like that does not happen overnight, right? So we are playing with AI because we've been lucky enough to be on this journey for the last decade and like really seriously in the last 5 years. And as an example, with some of our applications that we've built on our Microsoft platform, we have major outage events in our facilities, and we are overlaying a co-pilot program or other AI to give predictive feedback to our management teams when we hit those maintenance intervals again. So we're playing with some pretty cool stuff. Again, more collapsing of administration, but this digitalization of process journey, again, where it sounds like Hamza and Brad are at, like it is going to take at least another 3 to 5 years at our company before we can really dig into AI.
Okay, good, but I'm glad you're on the journey. Hopefully
People
we
need
can
to start
catch up
somewhere.
underground. Hamza, I know earlier you mentioned flip phones, and I think there are some other connected devices. Are you using a voice recorder with them, or how are you connecting and leveraging AI with the work you're doing?
Yeah, the flip phones is just the workers' personal phones. That's what they just use for their everyday life. I was just using a comparison on their technological capabilities from moving from using a flip phone in their everyday life to using an iPad. But in terms of AI, it's like what Andrea is saying. You have to walk before you can run. This is new technology we're implementing right now. AI is pretty advanced and we're not at that stage yet. And I do see it at a point where maybe in the next 3 to 5 years that everything is going to be implemented with AI. But as of right now, we haven't reached that point.
Okay, well then I have a follow-up question for you from a couple of the questions in the chat. So workers using their own devices, how do you monitor using them for like non-work purposes during the work shift? Or is there any risk of the information they're putting in being hijacked or corrupted by some other influence?
So our workers aren't using their own personal devices for the underground apps. They're using our devices that we provide to them. There are certain permissions, so they don't have access to the App Store to add Minesweepers, other games to it. There are pre-populated apps that they are able to use, such as a calculator, camera, and the actual, like say, Deswick Ops app. So that's how we restrict them from using the tablet for unintended purposes.
Good. That's what we have done here as well. They're all company-owned devices and they're in kiosk mode. So that way you only can operate the apps that are installed by our IT department. Brad, any comment on that? I know a lot of safety information, we struggle with sharing it. Any concern about having these large databases and perhaps one of those bad actors getting into them?
No, all our data and through Sophie is all logged on, obviously a database that's protected and secure. And they do use company provided devices. They don't use their own devices. Um, Ours aren't as locked down. The original version was actually locked down and it created some other issues. So they have a little more flexibility with the devices that we provide them. And our surface drilling and blasting individuals, where we have those workers, actually get 5G devices. And I'll go back to the leadership piece on people adding, apps and outside and using them for non-work related uh, activities. They have their own personal devices. A lot of sites restrict them underground, and we do as well. But if somebody really wanted to, they could have their own device and be doing non-work related activities as well. And we have supervision and we have managers and superintendents for that set expectations. And we've just taken the approach of, we could put those controls in place. It was affecting the operation of the actual platform. So we removed it and just gave trust in our people that they're going to act properly as good employees and then just hold them accountable. I mean, when we see it not happening, and we have very, very few issues in that regards. I think trust with your workers goes a long way. And if you show it, they show it back. So that's my opinion and that's what I've realized at Technica. So.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a good spot to start from. Andrea, have you seen similar with devices on Surface?
Yes, Brad, like totally agree. That was the journey that we were on. And by giving, like, so we've given all of our workers a company phone. We also have hazardous locations, so they need to be certified. So there's that additional piece. But we didn't feel if there were workers, especially unionized workers, using workplace apps, they need a company provided device. And so by giving one worker a phone and also having it largely not locked down, we've had so many benefits. As an example, everyone has their own digital signature now. We have some control over the phone because we have our device managers on our phones. But workers are still able to play Candy Crush if they really want to, and chat on Facebook messengers with their family. And because we've had the same philosophy as Brad, maybe to a more extreme philosophy of having these phones largely not locked down, we see way more engagement and efficiencies in workers actually being on their device when they need to be. And the supervisor says, hey, get back to work, or hey, look at this, because they're going to be on their personal phones as much as we try to make it on such that they have their personal phones on their persons. Workers will find a way to stay connected in 2025, and we've acknowledged this. And so taking this approach of trust has paid off for us.
That is good to hear. And I think it's getting close to the top of the hour. We probably have time for another question. So I'll combine a couple of them here. So do we have any advice around integrating the data from one software package to another? And what is the tool really the connected device, or is it the different softwares within the connected device? And I guess, and how do we fit it all together? Maybe I'll jump to you first, Hamza. And I know you're running Deswick's operator app. Are you running any other softwares at the same time, and do they talk to each other?
Yeah, so I could touch on this. So our here at Musselwhite, we use the Deswick Op system. That's essentially the input system. So the operators have their tablets, they input all the information. Then the supervisors they refine the information, make sure that everything that they entered is right. There weren't any errors. Like instead of finishing at 6:30 a.m., they finished at 6:30 p.m. They filter the information, make sure that it's all correct, and then all the information from Desert Ops is then transferred to Power BI. And in Power BI, it creates all the reports we know. So it essentially creates sort of like a scoreboard, kind of like ESPN, where you know exactly who are your best operators at certain activities, who are your best drillers, who are your best bolters, you know, how many bolts this person can do per hour, how many pieces of screen this person can hang in an hour, how many holes this person drills in an hour. So you kind of get sort of like a stat sheet of by operator, you can tell who's who. Obviously, this isn't transparent and very visible to everyone, so that the competition isn't and there's no animosity between the operators. But yeah, we are using multiple softwares to integrate this, and they talk to each other. And whereas our Power BI reports are fed information straight from Desert Ops.
Interesting. I love that competitive spirit. We're doing a little bit of that here too.
Yeah.
Brad, have you seen something similar with safety information?
Yeah, Hamza, when he brought up Power BI, that's kind of like where we pull everything together and collide the different platforms we're using. For example, our ERP system has employee information and certain information that's our source of truth. So Sophie actually pulls all the training information and is integrated with Viewpoint, pulls all the training information for our employees. So when they go on their profile on their tablet, they see all their training information. That's the integration between our ERP where we house everything and the interface with Sophie. And then on the dashboarding and the data side, we're using Power BI to kind of like pull all our sources of data together where we can dashboard trend and put all our information, whether it be maintenance from our I know we dashboard and track a lot of our work order system and how the maintenance is going. And then on the safety side, we pull some information from our ERP system, some from Sophie to create the story or the picture for us of how the operation is going.
Excellent. We're actually using Power BI here as well to, correlate information from different systems. Andrea, I'm more curious about the interaction between operations and maintenance. Normally, those two groups have different systems, and have you been able to make them talk to each other?
Oh, that is a great question, Jen. So what you're getting into is like our process interfaces and finding efficiencies with process interfaces. Yes, we are seeing a lot of wonderful connections between maintenance and operations that we wouldn't have otherwise had. We were more siloed, and the technology and the applications and working with our frontline workers has really bridged that gap and given us massive efficiencies. So that's where this is all going, and you can only do it with the tech.
Excellent. So I think it's about time to turn things back over to Michelle because I know she wants to tell us about the next exciting safety share.
Thanks, Jennifer. And thank you, Andrea, Brad, and Hamza. Also, a special thanks to IM Gold for sponsoring today's episode of the Safety Share. I'd like to thank all of our attendees and ask that you please fill out the short survey that pops up on your screen at the close of the webinar. A link to the video recording of today's webinar will be emailed to you tomorrow. We hope you will join us for the next episode of the Safety Share on June 19th. You can watch the CIM calendar of events at cim.org for details on that. We hope to see you there and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.